Well, hey guys, we are joined today by my good friend, Drew Auker. And Drew is, I've known Drew for several years now. I'm excited to dig into his story because candidly, I don't know a lot of it. And one of the neat things about Drew that we'll get into is he is licensed in both California and San Diego, does work in San Diego and in 30A in Florida. And that's a very unique part of his business that I'm excited to get into. Drew, thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. And when you launched this thing, I said, would you even have me on this?
Of course.
Said, of course.
So, kidding me. You're on the first list.
I was very humbled. You're
on the VIP list.
That's very generous of you.
I'm gonna start real quick before we get into the questions. I'm gonna start by just sharing a little bit of how we met, which is I don't know if you remember this, but it was like late 2019, I think.
I do.
And I decided, hey, we have all these California agents sending people to Texas, or all these people moving here to Texas from California. I should probably start reaching out to agents on the West Coast and just introduce myself. I don't know how to do that well. And so I came up with the harebrained idea to just email blast the entire West Coast. And I was doing like book giveaways, and I was trying all sorts of things. And you responded to one of my emails and was like, let's hop on a phone call. Do you remember that?
I do. Do you remember that was a time when like what was impressive in technology was when there was animations in email headers?
Yeah.
And I remember
back then.
So the email there was the email header, and there was there was a plane or something going from California to Texas on the map.
I thought that was clever.
And then there was your face below it with a little badly pixelated animated video.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I was just like, okay, he's got my attention. And I clicked the video, and then I watched your video, and I was one phone call away from you then.
I did not know about this. This is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll show you. I'll show you that GIF later if I can.
I'll say we're gonna have to go into the archives and find that one.
Go back into the archives. Yeah, who knew? Well, and we've been friends ever since. So that was great. Well, Drew, let's start with the same question that we start every podcast. You've been in this business a long time, and I am confident that you've seen your fair share of crazy things. Is there any story from your career that comes to mind when I say, hey, what's something crazy that you've experienced in your real estate career?
Oh, yeah. Probably the craziest one was, it was early on. I was a new agent, newer. Maybe I was 2 or 3 years in. It was still at the point where I had my Honda Civic. I remember that. So I was like, it was like we were scraping nickels together to make pennies, and it was like that. And I was doing open houses pretty much every weekend. I was starting to get into a real rhythm of it. And I just remember I'm very routine and regimented, so I have little cadences. So I'd go out at 6:30 in the morning, and I'm putting the open house signs out. And I'd get out of the car, press the trunk release button, take the signs out, put the signs out, go back, close the trunk, get in the car. And I just do that over and over and over again. I'm like listening to, I don't know, whatever on my headphones. And so I'm doing this over and over again, and get out, take the sign out, put it on the street, get back in the car, get out, take the sign out, turn around, get back in the car, get out, take the sign out, turn around, the car's driving away from me. It's like, oh, well, that is not part of the routine. It was really very shocking, honestly. So I realized after a couple moments, okay, somebody has stolen my car. They've also stolen my phone. So I'm at this intersection. I run to the flower shop that's there. And there's a woman who's shopping for flowers. And I said, excuse me, you don't know me. May I borrow your iPhone? And she says, she's like, who are you? I said, did you see that Civic that just drove that away? She said, yeah. I said, I'm the real estate agent that owns that Civic. That's the signs. My car's that. Oh, she's like, okay, great. So I get on her phone, and I don't know what, but listen, I'm not I'm pretty quick on my feet, but this was a moment where I think like all the adrenaline and cortisol was out of control. So I realized, oh, I can track my phone and also call 911 at the same time. So
Whoa.
I kid you not, I tracked my phone, called 911, it got the police there at some point. This was like, we had really great police response times. They got the car back and the phone within, I think it was like 45 minutes or an hour. And I was able to get to the open house on time, which was still like 5 hours later. So
No way.
That's incredible.
That's incredible. No damage to the car?
None. No, they wanted the car and they wanted, I don't know, there was like whatever there was in the car. There wasn't any cash hanging out. But the most surprising thing was they took the iPhone and they like threw it in the woods. Cause I guess they realized they had been tracked or something. So
that's incredible.
It was the weirdest thing. It was the weirdest thing. I mean,
first stolen car story on this podcast.
Exactly.
So well done. That's a great story.
Yeah. And in San Diego of all places, and this was not in like a tough neighborhood. This was in like a pretty reasonable middle of the road kind of place that you wouldn't expect to turn around and see your car driving away.
It makes me want to have a conversation with that guy and just go, what were you like following him as he put out his signs, hatching your plan? Or were you just like taking a walk and you noticed that the car door was open and you're like, I'm just going for it. Why not?
Don't know. Could have been casing me for months for all I know.
Yeah. You knew your routines were your undoing. And we'll get into those routines, in fact, during this interview. Well, let's rewind the clock back to the beginning. And I have not heard this story, but I want to know how did you get into real estate in the first place? Like what led you? Did you always plan to be in real estate? How did you get started in real estate?
So there were a couple disjointed moments. I remember I was 23 years old and I moved to California. Prior to that, I'd been in like property management and working with a construction manager, and she was great. So I had a little bit of real estate. End up on the plane to California at 23 years old. By the way, I had no idea. I didn't know anybody here.
From where, by the way?
Oh, Boston. I was living in Boston at the time. I grew up in Rhode Island, lived all over New England, was living in Boston at the time. And I was in a relationship that I wanted to exit. So I, like any good 23-year-old might do at the time, said to the bartender, hey, if you could move anywhere, where would you move? And the bartender says to me, well, San Diego. And he tells me all of this great stuff about San Diego. So I turned to my then husband, now ex-husband at the time, and said, I'm moving to San Diego, thinking that was going to solve the problem. Well, unfortunately, he followed me, but that's okay. Anyways,
it's San Diego bound.
That all worked out too. Ended up San Diego bound. And I remember, A, I needed a job because I had all of $1,000 in the bank. B, I was fascinated as we were driving in the taxi cab from the airport to this apartment in Mission Valley that I had rented sight unseen. I saw these houses up on the hill that I remember, like, kind of stuff of movies. And I had this thought like, wow, those are so cool. I wonder like who lives there? Like what neighborhood is that? But then, the need for a paycheck showed up and I ended up taking a job in commercial real estate, which was not my cup of tea. Not really my cup of tea. Not the right culture. Not necessarily around folks that I really found myself, we'll say, values aligned with, and found myself without a position anymore after about 2 years of that, just because I wasn't willing to compromise my integrity and jumped out of there. So I remember I'm sitting on the couch in my apartment with my now husband, then boyfriend at the time. We've been together for 20 years. And I'm kind of like, woe is me. What am I going to do with my life? Having one of those conversations. And he just stares at me and he says, you've got your real estate license. Why don't you go sell some houses?
Simple as that.
It was really as simple as that. I said, oh, well, that's kind of a good idea. And I remembered those houses up on the hill It's like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So I called and I interviewed with the company that he happened to have a friendly relationship with the broker. The person that he knew hated me at first, absolutely hated me, wanted nothing to do with me. But the owner of the company, she said, no, this guy, he could do it. They brought me on. The guy that hated me ended up becoming my mentor, is now a very, very good friend of mine after 20 years or so. And
it only took you 20 years to break through.
That's how it all happened.
So you're at the beginning of your career. You have your license already. You're jumping in. You have a mentor who doesn't necessarily like you that much.
Yeah.
Where do you start? Like, when was this? First of all, when was this?
Yeah, 2008. So this was 2008. And I don't know if you remember much about 2008.
Great time to sell houses.
It was kind of when like everybody thought I was crazy. First of all, my family, my friends, they were just like, "What are you doing? Everybody's getting out of the business like rats off of a sinking ship. Like you're crazy." I really was just kind of dumb. I really didn't know any better. It wasn't like I had something in me that's like, oh no, I'm going to prove them wrong. It was, well, this seems like a good opportunity. I feel like these people are telling me that if I can go and sell 12 houses in my first year and then 24 and then 36, like I could really build a great living. And so that's how that all happened.
The rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. I mean, I just went and did what the guy that didn't like me very much at the time told me to do. And he was brilliant. By the way, I should give him a lot of credit. His name's Ken Pecos. And Kenny, if you end up watching this, just love you.
We'll tag him. And
really taught me most of everything that I know, I would say. Yeah.
So what, all of us we all had our strategies at the beginning, and a lot of times those shift over time. What were the things, like what were the practices, what were the strategies at the very beginning that you were really diving into to get your business off the ground? Like what were you doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, it was building a database. It was open house. It was creating relationships with people. It was, everybody, you might be familiar with like the Brian Buffini podcasts and that method, the working by referral method. And I'm the kind of personality that I dive into something with everything and just kind of drink the Kool-Aid. And so I drank the Brian Buffini Kool-Aid and went in full bore. And
as a true Southern Californian, you should, right? That's
yeah.
It's the Buffini land.
It worked. And it totally worked. Everything that he said would happen, happened. I have no regrets. There's this incredible community of people now that I've built that really like just advocate for me. And I, of course, put my own spin on things here and there, but mostly just followed that methodology and did a ton of open houses and followed up with people and just did really excellent work. If I do say so myself.
For those who, and I love Brian Buffini. I did a lot of Buffini training early as well. For those who aren't familiar, like what would you say are the things that stand out in terms of what is kind of the core of his methodology?
Well, so one thing about Brian, which coincidentally with the name of your podcast, Principled, that I really appreciate about him, even up until now, and he's got this incredible community of people that he's built, and I think his podcast has now been rebranded called like the Good Life Podcast. Yep. He's a very principled person, and he believes that principles about people never change, and that's something that just got infused into me. And I really saw this thing about people that if you will pour yourself into people and tell them what you want to tell them and set expectations, frame them up for that. I'm going to be reaching out to you because I would rather work with the people that you know, because they're likely good people, than go out and try to door knock and cold call. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, we can come back to that. I've actually seen that those things are pretty cool too. But that ultimately his principle is that if you follow the law of the harvest, particularly with people, and if you continue to plant seeds in people, over time, you will reap a great harvest. And that proved true. I mean, what it looks like on the court is you create a database, you call your best people, you send them notes in the mail, and you go see them in person. It's pretty easy.
Feels so simple, and yet so few people do it. You're because I know you to be a pretty regimented person. You're pretty disciplined. I feel like you're, and maybe you've just been faking me out for years. I don't know, but that seems to be up your alley. And because you throw yourself into things, full bore when you do, what did you find that you gravitated the most towards, to this day? What practices do you still kind of, cling to, even as your business has evolved over time?
Having face-to-face conversations with people and having really honest conversations with people about where I'm at in the business and what I want to do for them and how they can help me. That's one of the things that's really stuck through. There was a time in my career when I was having 5 breakfasts, 5 lunches, 5 afternoon coffees. So I had 15 face-to-face, one-on-one opportunities stacked throughout the week. And then I was making about 60 calls a week. I was having 60 phone conversations on top of that. So you'd have 45 face-to-face interactions, 60 telephone conversations with the people in the database. I'm not doing near that anymore, but definitely there's still a level. But the thing that really has stuck with me is that when having those face-to-face interactions, it's just about sharing with people, hey, listen, this is what I'm really committed to building. I want to do something different that nobody else is doing. I actually want to take exceptional care of people, not just sell them a house. So do you know anybody who's worked with somebody that maybe didn't get excellent service, that maybe they might benefit from a conversation with me? Because I'm going to be calling you and asking you to send me those people pretty much every 3 weeks for the rest of the time that we are related to one another. So you should expect that call from me. Why I'm doing that is because I want to empower you to be able to take care of everybody in your life. It's not because I think you've forgotten that I'm a real estate agent. It's not because I am desperate for your business. It's because I want to grow something here. And I continue to have almost that very same conversation with people when I meet them for the first time, particularly now that I'm here in Florida and I'm building something completely brand new from the ground up, which is super fun.
And I want to talk about that because I think that's a fascinating part of your story. I want to double click though on the ask part of what you just said, which I think is, and I'll personally say, I still, even 12 years in the business, I don't love to ask. I don't love to ask. You, I know, are committed to the ask, and you've presumably always been good at that. I don't know, but talk to me about, because I think the fear for a lot of agents is what about ask fatigue? If I'm having these conversations regularly with people who I have a relationship with, does it just feel like I'm always taking? Does it feel like it's transactional because they get fatigued of me asking? What would you say to that?
2 perspectives. It's a great question. One is it's all in the framing and setting up the context for why we're asking. And I think that that's something that, so it's, so we can talk about that, but it's all in the framing. There's that. And then the other perspective is that we don't want to necessarily ask every single time we interact with somebody. We want to ask in peak emotional moments. We want to ask in peak transaction moments. We want to ask when it's appropriate in a conversation. I've just always worked it out so that it's appropriate in almost every conversation, because just part of my way that I've kind of built my culture or the way that I communicate is that I'm able to just say things like, hey, and just in case you've forgotten, Papa really has big goals. So is there anybody else that you can think of that has a house that they might need to sell? Because I only have 2 listings lined up for next month and I could really use another. Like I've built that, and yeah, that not everybody can say that. I'm very, like most of the agents on my team even cringe at the thought of maybe going with that approach, but I don't know. I leaned in really early with honesty and with authenticity. And my ask does come from a true place of vulnerability. I cannot do this without you, Mr. and Mrs. Advocate, Mr. and Mrs. Client, Mr. and Mrs. Agent Referral Network Partner. I can't do this business without you, Ryan, without your trust and sending me your people. I need your help.
I think there's something about what you just said that's actually an ask from a place of humility is very different than an ask from a place of greed, right? And maybe that's what you mean when you're talking about framing. It also seems like one of the things that you have said over and over again is kind of like, hey, I've got this mission, like I've got this, it's bigger than me and I'm chasing this. Will you help me? And people, it seems like you're kind of rallying the troops almost with the ask too.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
A really great mentor of mine, I've had lots of different folks that I've listened to their podcasts over the years. So he's not a personal mentor of mine, but Darren Hardy, he's got this one framework that he calls the white, I'm going to do it very poor justice, but the white knight framework, where you're positioning your business as that, if it's authentic for you, that you are there to charge in and save the day for the community. And it's about figuring out, well, what problem are you solving? And is it an authentic problem that exists that only you can solve in a very particular way? And you're right. I lean into that. I'm here on a mission. I'm here to make sure that you don't get stuck with one of the other 24,000 licensed real estate agents in San Diego in that case. And the multiple handfuls of thousands here along the panhandle coast of Florida who are with love, well-meaning, part-time, and imprecise in their approach. I'm here to save you from that. Yeah. Because I want what's best for you and I want what's best for everybody you know.
That's good.
So well said.
So good.
Yeah.
Can we dial in a little bit? I'd love to hear, you talked about exceptional care for your clients as it relates to, CRM, diving in, lunches, phone calls. What does that look like on a transaction basis?
So lots of communication. So in the transaction, there's, if we're going to talk about all of the things that I wished happened on every single transaction, we can have that conversation. Because as you grow a team and you get a little bit further away from the transaction yourself, you can create checklists and processes and standards. And we do have standards, and they get a little, you have to continue to attend to that. So anyways, our standard looks like, from the very first conversation that we have with the client in that intro call, it's about, tell me about your goals, and then immediately framing their goals against the reality of the market. So there's, what's your goal? Great. Let's talk about the reality of how possible it is to achieve that goal. Let's look at the obstacles together. Now let's construct a way forward. So we start with that conversation. We get into we get a little bit further. We get into the consultation and we pull that apart in every which way, which is, if you're a buyer, we're looking at, this is what you'd like. This is where you'd like to be. This is what you can afford. How much does that line up with the reality? What are the market conditions, the obstacles that are in front of us? Great. Now, can we create a way forward here that we can work together? Let me tell you what's going to happen in the process. Lots of preemptive conversations for the obstacles mostly being their mindset, perhaps the market, perhaps a repair negotiation that maybe doesn't yield the full result that they want it to yield. And just really kind of putting all of the obstacles up on the table so that they can relate to them as that they're obstacles that are in the way of the way forward, and that we can all move through to the way forward. We know we're getting there, but we need to see all the little landmines on the road. Yeah.
And you're getting out in front of those immediately. Like that's part of making, well, at least what I'm hearing you say is part of being the white knight for your clients is going, hey, there are some landmines. We're going to plan for them. I have a plan for you for them. And we can help you navigate those in a way that's going to make this process seamless.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what we've done for other people. This is what we're going to do for you. We're going to see you through this. It's going to be beautiful. At the end of it, we're going to wish you a fond farewell, and we're going to ask you for 3 people that you know that would love to have the same experience.
Hey guys, as you know, being a business owner who wears a bunch of different hats can be exhausting. That's why I started cold plunging most mornings. It's been a total game changer for me. And I actually got into cold plunging after I had surgery to repair a torn muscle. Not only did it help me heal faster, but I also found myself hooked on the endorphins and the incredible boost of energy I felt afterward. Now it's a part of my daily routine. I use Ice Barrel to wake up, recover, and stay mentally sharp every day. As a business owner, I know that taking care of my health is just as important as taking care of my business. Cold plunging with the Ice Barrel has helped me reduce stress, recover faster, and perform at my best, both physically and mentally. And here's the best part. You can try it for yourself with an exclusive 20% discount just for listeners of this podcast. Head to icebarrel.com and use the promo code Principled at checkout. That's Principled, PRINCIPALED. Plus, you can share this discount with your clients. If they're looking to add something unique to their backyard wellness space, an Ice Barrel is an amazing addition. It's a great way to provide extra value as their agent while helping them invest in their health and recovery. Start your mornings with a boost, take your performance to the next level, and help your clients do the same with Ice Barrel. You won't regret it. Hey agents, I want to take a quick moment to talk about the bane of my business owning existence, managing my money. You know, real estate income can be unpredictable, and keeping your commissions organized is a game changer. That's why I use Sequence, the ultimate money router and banking solution built specifically for real estate agents. I personally use Sequence to automatically set aside money for my taxes, so I'm never caught off guard. Plus, I've set up pods for payroll and operational expenses, making it easy to budget and manage my cash flow without the stress. It's like having a financial assistant built just for our industry. If you want to take control of your finances like I have, Sequence is the way to do it. And because you're a listener of this podcast, you get an exclusive 25% discount when you sign up. Just go to getsequence.io and use the promo code Principled, PRINCIPALED at checkout. Trust me, once you start using Sequence, you'll wonder how you ever managed your commissions without it. Sequence is a partner of Thread Bank, member FDIC. What do you think, apart from kind of doing a good job of expectation setting and, you know, process-driven transaction, what do you think you in particular have done extremely well for your clients? Like what over time, with the benefit of hindsight, do you think is your kind of special recipe that's made you good and has people coming back to work with you?
Honesty and candor at every step of the way. I've never once told a client what they want to hear. And I'm also going to say there's a real repetitive cadence of the communications that I'll have with clients. I'll say the very same things that I said in the initial consultation and the listing consultation that I'm saying in the call before we're going on the market. Now, remember, I told you that the market's an evolving thing. So now let's have a conversation about where the market is right now so that you can understand what are buyers doing right now so that then we can make an informed choice on how we're going to move forward. So there's a lot of consistency in language. That seems really conceptual, though. Maybe we want to go a
Yeah,
little more
talk
specific.
to me more about honesty and candor, because I knowing you, I know that to be true, and I've always appreciated that about you. I feel like you have a way of being direct and speaking the truth that's not harsh, but it is honest. And even the way that you just presented your ask, it's like, hey, Papa's got big goals. It's like that is authentic, and it is full of candor, and I love it. But it's also you kind of have this you have this way about you that I feel like you're able to kind of keep it light, and it's an attractive quality. And so, and I
My
love that.
husband would differ from you, by the way, on the keeping it light. He says
He's
that
not
I
a
am
client,
way too serious all the time, and that I
Yeah.
need to be a lot more funny.
and you need to chill. I think you're pretty funny. I think you're pretty funny.
Appreciate that.
Where do you see, I mean, do you have people pleasing tendencies? And if not, like, where do you think that came from? Because I think a lot of times it's people's desire to please gets in the way of their candor. And I don't see a whole lot of that from you.
Well, I 110% have people pleasing tendencies, and my mind and my emotions and my heart rate is constantly at a 98% throttle when I am saying the things that I know that they need to hear. But and there's always been exceptions to this. I can think of a great exception to this. We had a listing that we listed, and I did not tell the seller what they needed to hear in one conversation. And that was a very hard experience for us all in working together then for the next 4 months. That was last year. So I'm not infallible. And that incidentally was absolutely what you just said there, a tendency to want to please people for whatever reason. The personality dynamic in that conversation took away that extra courage that I had in the moment.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's understanding that success in the long run is linked to the client walking away and saying that was exceptional. And you don't get exceptional from people that you're constantly slightly at odds with throughout the process. You need people that they have great expectations set. You've told them the truth from the start. They may not have liked what you had to say. However, they respect you for what you said. And now you're leading them down the path.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
I think you and I were talking before this morning, and I think it kind of goes back to that surgeon conversation. It's like, if I go to a surgeon, I've got a problem. I'm not going, yes, I might not want to hear that I need to be cut on, but it would be far worse if the surgeon said, hey, just take this pill, you'll be fine. And then 6 months I'm back in his office. Right. And a lot of the times, and I think this is my story too, it's like we can all look back on listings we took that we accepted a list price that we knew was going to not be great, or our gut was telling us it wouldn't, and we should have had that conversation. We didn't have that conversation. And then, a few times, maybe more than 2 for me in 12 years. And I don't know about this for you, but for me, it's like the pain of those mistakes for me is what keeps me honest. It's like, I know the result now because we've been there before.
Yeah.
Do you feel that too?
That's so good. That is so good, because you're right. It's like there's a small portion of my brain that remembers that in the moment where I don't want to speak up and just says, well, I understand that you believe that your home is worth $2.4 million. I appreciate that. I'm curious, have you really looked at that against the data? that we're looking at here? Have you really truly looked at that against this data? And I guess that, you asked earlier, what's the thing that I've been doing that maybe I didn't realize I was doing, or some version of that? I never had a framework for it before. My current mentor, his name's Brady Sandall. He's just an exceptional guy. He's the head of KW Luxury for the whole country and just an absolute dynamic person. Anyways, I don't know if he invented this model, but I am going to give him credit for it. I've always just simply led with a lot of care in the start of the conversation and then just asked a lot of questions. It's been like, so tell me what your concerns are. Tell me what's keeping you up at night. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Get it all out. And then, okay, now let me talk to you about how we can move forward with all that. And he calls that the 4 C's: care, curiosity, consult, and close. And I love that because you can map that into any conversation that you need to have with somebody that's a difficult conversation, whether it's around pricing or expectations, whether it's around asking for business, whether it's around making that ask for a referral, like, hey, I really care about you. I really care about people. I really care about all of that. I'm really curious. Do you have a real estate agent that you actually would really trust if your mother said that they needed to sell their home? Who would you refer her to? Okay, no, you don't. Well, I'd love to be that person for you. I'd love to be that person for you. Maybe we could build that trust over time. And yeah, so that's kind of cool. Just saw how all that goes together.
I love that. I really love that. The 4 C's. I want to get in a little bit. So the evolution of your business, you
Sure.
started in San Diego, have had a long, successful career in San Diego. And since I've known you now, you started spending a little bit more time in Florida, and then a little bit more time in Florida, and now a lot of time in Florida, and now you're primarily in Florida. And so I would love to hear the evolution of your business and talk to us. Like, not many people do that dance, the 2 market dance. I've known a few agents who have. I know some agents that have tried and had a really hard time with it. Would you just share with us, number one, how that evolved, and then talk to us about what that's like? Like, what's it like juggling? What challenges have you had? But also, like, what have you learned in the process? Because I'm really curious to hear. I think you're starting over from scratch with a whole lot more knowledge than you started from scratch in the beginning. And I wonder what that's like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can we work in reverse?
In reverse.
All right. Starting off from scratch with a whole lot more knowledge. Once you get over the fact that you do have to start from scratch and you can acknowledge that, is really fun. It's really fun for me right now. I am having more fun than I've had in this business in a long time. And, so there was a good long period of time where mostly what this whole thing looked like was I was living in San Diego and I lived there for, let's just say, 15 years, right? Built a business over the course of 15 years. And then COVID happened. Husband grew up in Northern Alabama. We started to spend more time here on the Panhandle coast of Florida. Fell in love with it. Fell in love with the idea of being able to be around family a lot more, and bought a house out here and started to do 6 months, and all that. So initially the idea of selling real estate here was great. I'm going to get everything out in California running really perfectly. And then I'll be able to split my time between both of these places. And I just wasn't doing anything in Florida for the longest time, really, until maybe I'm going to say 2 months ago, 45 days ago, even. And it all changed when I had this conversation over dinner with a good friend of mine who's an agent in Tampa. Her name's Heidi Joy. And she said to me, Drew, the reason why nothing's happening for you in Florida is because you want to have the perfection of that 15-year business that you have in Southern California, and you want to have it in Florida, and you want to have it now. And I looked at her and I said a word that I won't say on your podcast. But she was 100% right. And it was one of those defining moments for me that had me see, what's needed is for me to just go back to basic and humble myself. I got to tell you, open houses are really fun. They're great. Because now, I go in there and 15 years of experience in creating dialogue. It's like people are used to meeting people that are maybe a little bit newer, a little bit more junior in an open house. And they come in and I don't know, just ask them a few questions. And before I know it, I got their contact information. We're going to look at another $2 million house. And it's happening so much easier than I thought it would. Like I thought that going back to basics would be hard and would be a grind and would be like beneath me, candidly. Like, there was a lot of my ego.
The ego part of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was just like, I am not going back and doing that. But I'm going to tell you something right now. I think I am going to be more profitable here in Florida in a very short period of time than I was after 15 years of building a very solid, respectable business in California, because now I've made all the mistakes.
Yeah.
You're building the right way, because how you should have built it if you knew the things you know now in the first place. That's incredible.
And it's just fun being face to face with the people again. I think that's the thing that nobody tells you when you start to scale up units and there's this conversation for, oh, great. Well, now what the new era is you build a team and empower people. And I love my team in California. They are my family, just as much as my family is my family. They have been for years. And at the same time, nobody tells you that putting those people in place, it puts you at a distance from the magic of the business.
Yep.
That relationship with the seller or a buyer, when you're no longer going on listing and buyer appointments, which I'm no longer going on those appointments for the most part in California.
That's a really interesting insight, because I was going to ask you, what are the mistakes that you made in your California business that you can look back on and go, I'm going to try to avoid those this time around? I don't know that you would consider that a mistake the way you built it, but outside of team structure, which is, I don't think we could call it neutral, what mistakes do you feel like you can avoid with the hindsight of a long career in California this time around? Like, what things are you going to do different?
Very simply, staying focused on lead generation that is direct business to consumer, and that is very and not getting distracted by every other lead generation methodology. I think when you go through it once, you have a lot of shiny object syndrome. I'm really clear that there were so many times that I started a farm and didn't finish it, and started a farm and didn't finish it. And if I went back and added up all of those dollars, oh man, I'd be just like, that would probably make me really mad.
Collin and I talked about this literally the other day, like looking back on 2024 and going, we told ourselves we weren't going to do that again. Why did we do that again? It's hard to do.
Yeah. What lead gen are you doing outside of CRM, phone calls? Is there anything that you say, hey, I'd put my chips in this space and it's working?
Well, no.
Okay. Yeah.
I think there's augmentations to that. There's complementary systems. Like I'm really interested in these email white label systems that will plug into your CRM and email folks once monthly with a great valuation of their home, kind of keep tabs on them, alert you or your agents to call them if there's any sort of maneuvering, signaling factors. Because once you get a big business with a big database, you got to have a way to be in front of people and keep on top of them. We have
Scalable.
We have 4,000 people in the database in California, and Lord knows I can't call all of them anymore. That's just not going to happen.
For sure.
So I love those supportive systems, but really, I do believe the plan in Florida is really strictly going to be a very relational based marketing approach, reaching people who are buying second homes, who live here full time, who know people who want to buy second homes here, and doing that through open house and perhaps adding just a little bit of new technology in there, having one of the relational touches be social media.
Yeah.
I've avoided that like the plague for a long time. But I am realizing
let us know how that goes.
Well,
Collin knows I have a love affair with social media.
He does. Yep.
Yeah. I just, one thing I know is that if I want people to be able to have an understanding of like who I am as an individual, then I've got to get authentic and I've got to get on there. And I've always avoided that. I've had, too many calls to make, too many lunches to go on, too many breakfasts, all of these things. But if you want to have, I'm really clear that is a mistake on my part. And I'm now in the process of correcting that and really sharing of myself and my real opinions out there online so that people can get a sense of who I am.
I love it. Well, we're kind of coming up on time. I just as your friend and someone who's watched you from afar, man, I'm 100% confident you're going to build a great business in Florida. Like couldn't be more sure of anything. And I just think what an opportunity, like a really cool opportunity to take all the knowledge you have in this business and apply it to start over, and go, it wasn't a fluke, it wasn't a fluke, and you're going to build it better the second time. So I think that's great. Want to end with the same question that we end every show, which is if you could magically hop in a time machine and head back to 2008 as you're a disgruntled commercial real estate guy, picking up your license and now going to sell just sell a few houses. What piece of advice might you give yourself back then?
Can I turn the question around and answer it a different way and give you,
Sure.
There's a piece of advice that I took that I wish that I hadn't.
Yep. Absolutely.
And, I got this advice that, when you live in this neighborhood and these are the people that look and feel like you, this is where you should sell. Even though I knew intuitively that what I really wanted to do was go and sell on the coast in North County. And I didn't follow my instincts there.
Mm.
And so I think the biggest, so that's the advice that I took that I shouldn't have taken. And if I could say something to my earlier self, it's that you can sell anything you want to sell so long as you're willing to put yourself in the right conversations. I could have created a luxury sales business right there from day one. I'm so happy that that's where God in my life and this business has brought me now. And man, oh man, it would have been really cool if we would have started, back on day one.
That's really good. And somebody listening to this that's early on who maybe didn't grow up in those neighborhoods or that wasn't the house that they were used to is sitting here feeling insecure about the idea of selling. luxury real estate, but they know they want to, and they're hearing this and going, you're giving them permission to go ahead and jump in.
Yeah. It's just luxury is an experience, not a price point, which is a little bit of maybe a cliche tagline, but it really is true. And I'm really confident that that person out there that maybe is listening to this needs to know that as long as you can understand the right questions to ask and be honest with people and lead with authenticity, they'll want to hire you.
People are people.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So
Well,
good.
Drew, thank you so much.
Yes.
This has been a pleasure for me because I get to ask all the questions I didn't know the answers to, even though I've known you for quite a while now. And man, your story's awesome. I love getting to glean from your wisdom when we have the chance to talk. So thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh man, well, that's very kind of you to say. This was great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
For sure. Before we go, where can people find you online? You mentioned social media, but website, where do they go?
Yeah. Websites, aukergroup.com, AUKER, the word group. And then on social media, I'm at Drew Auker, DREWAUKER, or you can find us at Auker Group or Auker Group _Sowall out on the Florida Panhandle coast.
Nice.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so
All right,
much.
Drew. Well, we appreciate you, man.
Cool. Thanks.
Hey, y'all. Ryan and Collin here. Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you have gotten any value from the show, and if you resonate with our thoughts on how we serve clients and happen to have a client moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we would love to serve them. Our promise to you is that we will take exceptional care of every single person that you send our way, that we will collaborate with you every step of the process to make sure that it is a seamless experience for everybody involved. And we're going to offer you a generous referral fee as a thank you for trusting us with that relationship. Now, you can connect with us through our social channels, or you can go to our website, all of which are linked in the show notes. As always, we appreciate you a ton. Now back to the show.
Okay, Ryan, we just had Drew Auker on the show, splitting time between 30A, Florida, San Diego. Man, just give me your first take after listening to Drew's story.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of Drew's for a while because I know Drew personally. I feel honored to get to call him a friend. But there's a lot about his story I didn't know, and yeah, I loved getting to hear. You know, I've always experienced Drew as this like highly confident, very disciplined, very authentically honest person, and it was good for me to hear. You know, because 12 years into the business, I feel far more confident than I did at 2 years into the business. But sometimes I see Drew's candor and I'm like, man, I wish I was that direct. You know, like even now I'll be like, man, I wish I was, you know, and surely he's got this like Teflon skin, man. He's not worried about, you know, offending his clients and being honest with them. And it was good for me to even just hear him go, yeah, like my heart beats like a million miles an hour when I've got to like have these direct conversations, and I blew it last year on this one deal that kind of haunts me type of thing. And it's like, yeah, you know what? He is so, there's a humility, I think, to him that is really great. And part of the reason I think he's grown such a successful business because he's willing to be honest with himself too and identify the areas that he can improve. And so I just thought that was awesome. And I mean, he is really, you know, I think he's not patting himself on the back, but he's built an incredibly successful business in San Diego over time. And he's done some really impressive things. And to do that and then go, I'm going to start over from scratch is like the idea that like makes me sweat thinking about that. And I think there's just a level of courage that he has to do that. And he's got, you know, we talk about principles and, you know, the values of what were important to him and their family. We want to be close to family, and we're going to pick up and move halfway across the nation. And yeah, I'm working open houses again. Like I'm building a farm from scratch again. I find that to be incredibly courageous. And so I just think that's really cool. He's he's dynamic. I'm confident he's gonna kill it there in Florida. But man, I'm just impressed by his willingness to start again. And yeah, just very, very impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Breath of fresh air when guys like him come on and are vulnerable, humble, and authentic. Just hearing his story, I mean, he kind of fell into real estate, wasn't even really great at it, then pivoted and kind of followed in the worst time to jump in the real estate market and was like, yeah,
Totally.
I'll go do this. And so, yeah, just the humility there of like, yeah, I'll go and I'll try to figure it out and put my best foot forward. That was just really encouraging to hear. But yeah, I just loved his approach to so much. It was that, he's getting in front of people, having the right conversations, high on client care. Yes, the process, yes, the technology, even, saying today, like, hey, he's having to step into some technology spaces that he's not even accustomed to, but that willingness to get in and have conversations and be in front of his clients and really provide an unparalleled experience of client care. It's the communication aspects, being honest with them. Yeah, I mean, I felt convicted about that too. The more I've been in this business, it's like, man, just the right thing is always honesty, even when it's really tough to tell a client the truth about a home that they value, they think highly of, they care a lot about. It's like, yes, we want all those same things, but the best thing that I can do for you in this moment is be honest, take you to the data, and then walk with you through the process and remind you. I love when he talked about even just reminding them of like, hey, we're going to market. Here are the hurdles we may face. Here's the market's evolving. Like, let's have the conversation and staying in front of it. So there's no surprises. They're not caught off guard. And he's able to walk them through with clear communication and honesty every step of the way. And so that was just invaluable to hear that again, to go, hey, dive in, have the honest conversations, and then even walk through it again and remind them and touch base and stay in touch with them every step of the way. So
something you said that reminded me of something he said was that the piece when we got to talking about how to ask, like asking for help, and kind of that distinction between asking for help out of a place of humility versus a place of greed. And and I think just that even as he was saying his dialogue to us, I was like, he's really fine tuned that. And I'm still to this day, I'm not great at the ask. Like I've built a business 12 years in and I still don't love the ask. But he had a really good reframe on that I think is super helpful too, especially for those who are starting out in the business. If you're trying to accelerate things, like kind of got to ask for help. Like you got to ask for help, or else you're just kind of waiting for your phone to ring. And so I think that's going to be really helpful for some people to hear that haven't been doing this very long and are really trying to grow. So Drew, I think you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on. That was awesome.